Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're going to be talking about the one and only ICP coin. Personally, I am super high on this coin. You guys know I like this coin a lot. Now, I don't cover it that often on my channel, but I do believe that this coin will create wonders over, in terms of gains, let's say, and let's just say we're talking about gains, right? Let's just say we're talking about gains. I believe you could get very good gains off this coin. Now, I know some people are loyal to this coin and they care more about the project itself, which I do too, but I do not marry my projects, okay? I do not marry my coins. So, and you know me, on this channel, we mainly talk about technical analysis, buying opportunities, where to sell, where to expect bounce backs, and etc. So, look, guys, last week was pretty good for a lot of altcoins. Now, I will say that ICP did have a decent pump, right? At one point, it peaked 18%. The Sunday was a little bit of a sell off. So that's why the weekly candle doesn't look that good. But this picture kind of remains the same for me, right? We talked about previously how this zone was ultimately going to be the last prime buying zone because I did not believe we were going to go all the way down here, right? I didn't believe we're going to go down to these levels of 360. I did say it is a possible, it is technically possible if we do continue going back lower, but it wasn't that probable of an opportunity. And I said, look, around this 465 area is going to be where I expect it, especially that on a 3-month candle, we did tap exactly, right, into an institutional order block, right? Right here, we can see we tapped into the 3-month candle. And I expect for ICP to really start flipping, right? Ultimately, I expect April, May, and June to be the recovery candles because January, February, March is one 3-month candle. April, May, June is like another 3-month candle, right? So we saw that we sold off pretty heavy. And here are going to be your final buying opportunities, right? Overall, in the last month, buying anywhere from, let's say, 417 to even $5.60 is going to be your final prime opportunities because I do believe over the next few short weeks, we will start flipping bearish, sorry, not bearish, bullish, and we will start reclaiming levels. Guys, you also have to realize that for this coin, there's a lot of imbalance, right? Imbalance is pretty much when there's a lack of support and resistance. So look, climbing up to, something like $7 will be kind of fast. It might slow down a little bit, right? It might slow down a little bit, but once we kind of respect this area, we should kind of climb fast all the way upwards, in my opinion, of even something like $12, $13. Because that is when we see the next big zone, right? There's a lot of candles here. You could debate a little bit here, but ultimately there's a lot of imbalance and it starts slowing down around 1050. But since we are going to be pretty bullish over the next few short weeks and even few short months, then I do expect us to kind of go upwards of $15 fairly quickly, probably bounce back between $10 and $11 before then we continue pushing up higher. So look, overall, time is limited when it comes to this coin, when it comes to buying coins in general, because I do believe we have bottomed out and I do believe we will start reversing. So look, where will ICP go this cycle? Well, first of all, I personally think ICP is going to be one of those coins that hits $35 to $45 billion range, or sorry, 35 to 45 billion market cap. So just off the top of my head, 10x is 27 billion market cap, right? And if we were to even 20x, that is a little bit more than the 45 billion market cap, but that's ICP going upwards of $100 on a realistic, probability, right? You know me, I always am more conservative. I always do more realistic price predictions. I would always rather cut my potential gains in terms of my philosophy towards a project or coins, and then get surprised if it starts overpumping past my zones and readjust based on the technical analysis I see, right? So for me, this is one of those coins that's going to be easily, around the 13 to 18x gain potential. Now, I do think this coin can go much higher than that. We talked about, just even based off technical analysis, right? Based off technical analysis, if we go to something even like the daily, which we actually have to go to because at that point, this ICP has a very unique structure, by the way, right? ICP has a very, very unique structure. It kind of just opened up and died right away. It opened up during a horrible time, respectfully though. And it was, it started up super, super high in terms of price and market cap and everything. So, it was never going to sustain that. But look, ladies and gentlemen, if we go to something like ICP, even if we just zoom out, we can see clear zones. Over here, once we kind of get past the $25 zone, the next point of real resistance is going to be something like 58. And then the next point of any type of resistance will be something upwards of $100, right? After that, we can see it kind of gets mixy. It starts to get mixy. The next zone is going to be roughly $132, right? Which would be roughly at that point like 60 billion market cap. And then we can even go upwards of 180, 200 bucks. This coin, right? This coin, for what I see in terms of its value, its development, and the project itself, could very well have a higher high during the second pump if we have a second pump for altcoin season. Now, it's never guaranteed, right? It is never guaranteed. That is why I am, giving you these price predictions. This is why I not only am I giving you these price predictions, but why I'm more conservative, because 35 to 45 billion market cap range, which would be roughly, let's just say $80, is super probable and very, very likely if we just have, for the first pump, right? If we do have a second pump, I can definitely see ICP peaking, like I said, upwards of even like 160 to 200 bucks. But since that's not guaranteed, I'm only going to give you my first realistic take profit. So look, there's still a decent amount of time, right? There's still a decent amount of time before we get to the zones, right? In terms of the micro level, I do potentially expect ICP to kind of just chill around here, right? I do expect ICP to kind of chill around here, because I do expect Bitcoin to retrace a little bit, right? If Bitcoin does not retrace a little bit and it continues to push up, I believe ICP will have its time to shine. And the reason why I say this is because, look, even here, right, we can see that we have weekly candle closes here, but we can see that we are starting to create, what is this? Exactly, you guessed it, higher lows on the weekly. So before you know it, we will start gaining momentum and we will start printing higher, right? We can see ICP is also a very streaky coin, right? This coin is kind of slow until it's not. It kind of goes up, then down, up, down, kind of has weird price action. But once it starts getting into gear, it kind of just starts exploding. And I do believe, we're not into gear yet, but I do believe it is much, much sooner than later, right? Especially with, if we get anything close to a monthly candle close like this, right, we could have a little bit of a pullback back to maybe 480, and then we are going to be flipping for May and June, recovering, like I said, upwards of $8 and even, $12, and maybe depending on how things go for, the next 2 months, you could even see ICP go upwards of 20 bucks again. But like I said, the main recoveries I do see is $8 and the $12 zone over the next 2 months, which is not bad because, like I said, we will recover, we will go sideways. But then once we kind of explode from the $20 zone, that is when the real altcoin season will start for ICP. But yeah, that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.